Welcome back to the Business Leaders of America podcast, where business leaders come to share their advice and journeys to success with existing and emerging leaders of America. Now, here's your host, Dylan Bloyd.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Business Leaders of America podcast. In this episode, we have the privilege of sitting down with Jeremy Jenson, founder and CEO of Encore Search Partners, the largest privately held executive search firm in Houston, Texas. What started as a lead generation company has grown into a nationally recognized recruiting powerhouse known for placing top-tier executive and professional talent. Jeremy brings a unique background in sales, marketing, finance, and operations, all of which have played a role in how he's built and scaled Encore over the years. In our conversation, we'll explore the key moments behind Encore's transformation, how Jeremy has been able to lead with clarity and purpose, and what trends he's seeing in the ever-evolving talent market. Welcome to the show, Jeremy.
Man, thanks for having me. We had some technology difficulties, but we're here. We're ready to talk.
Yes, absolutely. It took a little bit, but finally we're here. Awesome, man. Well, I'm glad to have you on. So if we could just start this out, with you giving kind of a brief extended intro on yourself and how you got to where you are today.
Excellent. First of all, that was a great intro. We have a new social media person, and she must have put that together. And so she describes me way cooler than my kids describe me, for sure. Yeah, But yeah, so I own a 40-person direct hire recruiting firm here in Houston. We headhunt tough to find talent. So think like 100K plus professionals that aren't really looking for a job. And so employers bring us in as a grudge purchase, right, to go out and poach somebody from one of their direct competitors. So that's what I do. I do have 3 kids. They're 12, 10, and 8. I was married for 9 years, got divorced in 2019, and just got engaged 2 months ago.
Amazing.
So I'm engaged to be married, and we've got a date and a venue and all that booked for May of 2026.
Congratulations. Thanks, is amazing, man. Yeah, I'm excited for you. Three of your own. I have 5, mentioned a little bit in the green room. I have 5 myself, and me and my lady have actually been together. This is tough to say, but 17 years, and we are not married. We have been engaged for 5 years. 2020 happened, and we ended up had the venue, had everything ready to go, and then last second they said, nope, that's not happening. So we pushed it off, and now October finally getting to that point. So I'm with you on the on that part.
No worries. Well, yeah. My little brother has been with his he says his wife, but they've never had a wedding and have never gotten married, but they've been together for 9 years and have 3 kids, so he can relate to that to some extent. No worries, man.
Right. Yeah, my sister was with her now husband for I think 12 years, and she always said, that we weren't going to go that past that, and I always said I was going to break that record, but it definitely exceeded that by many years. So yeah, it's definitely our time.
Well, good, man. 17 years, dude. You look young. You were what, 17, 18 years old?
I was, yeah. We were in high school. Yeah, when we got together. Yep. Yeah.
Nice.
So been together ever since, and 5 kids later. Yeah.
Awesome.
It's the lighting. It's the filters. That's what you're seeing.
Yeah, right. Get out of here.
Oh man, but honestly, I'm excited to get into this. And you've worn a lot of hats: entrepreneur, marketer, finance analyst, even IT implementer early on, right? I was doing some research on you. And how did those roles shape your vision for building Encore Search Partners?
Yeah, well, it's funny because we're still kind of in the evolution of building Encore Search, even though the predecessor was started in 2010. But basically, my first business was an email marketing business. We would go in and we would meet with the executive team, and we would develop a strategy to go out and solicit people to generate leads for our clients. Built that business up to about $250,000 in revenue, and realized, man, I've just run out of hours in the day. There's no way I can scale.
Yeah.
At the time, my wife and I were expecting our first son. And so I knew there had to be a better way, a more sustainable business model, right? And so I took a look at my client base and realized that half of my clients were staffing and recruiting companies. And then I realized, oh shit, man, I'm in the wrong industry.
Yeah.
And so in January of 2013, I hired my very first recruiter. And instead of generating leads for a bunch of staffing and recruiting companies, I started generating leads for myself, right?
Yeah.
And so that was kind of the genesis of Encore Search. I had to understand the data. I had to understand the information systems, the ERP platform, the marketing automation tools. And I did what I knew how to do best, Dylan, was I knew how to generate leads. And the way that that's been done over the last 12 years has evolved, man.
Yeah.
Back in the day, email marketing was getting a over 50% open rate, right?
Yeah.
8% response. Now you'd be lucky to get 0.5% response. And
Yes.
even those 0.5% are people opting out, right?
Right.
So
Right.
it's crazy how we generate leads very, very differently. And so that's the thing that I kind of pride myself on is I'm a marketer that knows how to generate business
Mm,
through whatever the best platform is at that point in given time.
right. Do you believe the response rate has dropped due to AI emails being sent out on a consistent basis? Because people I feel like are getting, at least myself, I'm getting emails on a constant basis, from AI. Do you think that's why the response rate has dropped, or do you think that's increased it?
Yeah, no, great question. And so in certain industries, AI has probably helped increase it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you can definitely send out more volume than
Right.
manually. But I think the reason why it's down so much is email servers have just gotten so sophisticated, right? They
Mm,
know what spam, they know what, what to send into the junk email, they know what to block and quarantine entirely, right?
yep.
And I think that consumers and recipients are kind of desensitized to just getting blasted by constant contact platforms all day, right?
Right.
And so culturally, we kind of just have the mentality that hey, don't fucking ask. If I want to buy something, I'll reach out to you, right? And
Right.
so
Right.
we've migrated away from kind of like a lead generation mentality to being more of a demand generation culture, from my point of view.
Right, right. I mean, recruiting everywhere seems to be a very highly saturated market, right? Especially in a large city like Houston. I know you do it with the executives, but how have you been able to stand out and build such a successful firm in a space that's so competitive?
Yeah, great question. So we do things a couple of different ways, right? Number one is shit. We've just been doing it since 2013, right? And
Hmm.
so we've got a proven track record of success and a big long list of clients that have used us that we publicly brag about, right?
Yes.
We don't make it a secret that we work with Honeywell and next tier oil field and companies like Raymond James and LPL Financial and Clorox and Burt's Bees, right? These companies trust Encore Search Partners to go out and poach talent from their direct competitors. And so when you've got kind of like that stack of people that have known and trusted you before, it makes it very efficient to go out and target other like-minded employers of similar size that have the same business problems, right?
Hmm.
And so that's one of the challenges I think in today's environment is if you did have a startup, the way that consumers make decisions is we require trust, right? Credibility, rapport, right? Do I have a relationship with the brand? It's a lot harder to start a brand new brand from scratch today than maybe it was 12 and 13 years ago when we did.
Right, right. And I mean, if your guys' companies, success speaks for itself. I mean, you guys continue to deliver, and that's why those companies keep coming back to you, right? So how long on average are companies usually sticking with you when they're looking for executive type employees? How long are they typically sticking with you?
Oh man, you're putting the salt in the wound, Dylan. Because the challenge there is we might have a great relationship with an offshore drilling company, let's say Seadrill, for instance. We might
Right,
make 7 placements there. And then when we lose the director of talent acquisition and she goes to another company, a lot of times the replacement gets in there and brings in his own vendor, right? And
right,
so I'd like to think that we've got a 99% client retention rate, but the fact of the matter is we've got to capitalize on building relationships with those decision makers internally, because if they lose, the good part is they're probably going to bring us to their new company,
right.
right? But the bad part is if we don't have a relationship with some of the other decision makers internally, a lot of times we do tend to
Hmm.
lose those clients or at least exclusivity.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, working in manufacturing and distribution, we went through talent search, teams all the time, companies like that all the time because they deliver for us for a while and then all of a sudden, they have trouble delivering for a little bit and it's like, okay, we got to go somewhere else because we just
Yeah.
need talent, right? So how have you guys been so consistent though? I mean, you guys can continue to deliver.
Yeah, that's a great question, Dylan, because we do work with a lot of large manufacturing and industrial and distribution companies,
Yeah.
right? And I think that it's just transparency, right?
Mm,
If let's say you as a senior plant manager brings us in for a director of process engineering role,
yep.
right? In a perfect world, we're going to present you with 5 candidates. You're going to interview all 5 and hire the best one, right?
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes maybe we don't have qualified candidates to present, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it's a rural facility, right? Maybe the compensation structure for the experience required is misaligned, right? And so I think it's important for the recruiting team to share those analytics with the internal hiring manager.
Yeah.
That way, whenever another recruiting firm does knock on their door and say, hey, Encore is sucking, let us perform, at least our client knows why we are not having success, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they could run it up the chain. Maybe they need more money,
Right.
right? Maybe they need a heavier title bump. Maybe they need to lower their requirements on skills, experience, certifications, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what a good recruiter does is through a consultative approach with the client, they make it a fillable job based on our subject matter expertise in that market.
Okay. How long typically are your contracts with companies? Like when you do this, are you finding someone and immediately it's filled? Are you doing like a 2-year contract? Does it differ? If you don't
Yeah,
mind me
great
asking.
question. So we do direct hire recruiting, so we don't
Okay.
place any contractors or anybody on site.
Mm.
And we have greenfield contracts. In a perfect world, we'd love for our clients to use us forever, right? But
Yes.
the standard is probably going to be about 18 to 24 months,
Mm-hmm.
where companies bring us in a lot of times whenever they secure private equity or venture capital, right?
Yep.
And then they need to staff up in order to achieve their business goals,
Got
right?
it.
And so maybe it's an oil field technology company that was founded in Corpus Christi, Texas,
Right.
right? And they just got $200 million in growth capital from in-cap investments. Well, they're going to need to go out and establish a retail branch in West Texas, in Central Texas, North Texas, Panhandle, Oklahoma City, Las Cruces, New Mexico. So we're the agency that comes in and steals the salespeople,
Yeah.
right, away from their competitors. We go out and poach the branch managers and the HSE managers and the operations managers and the engineers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when it's all said and done, yeah, they got that 200 million bucks. Maybe they paid us $500,000 in recruiting fees, but guess what? Now they've doubled their enterprise value by hiring salespeople, operations teams, branch leaders, people that can help them achieve their business goals.
Right. Right. How far is Encore's reach, Jeremy? Is it across the nation? Is it New Mexico, Texas, those states surrounding? What is it?
Yeah, so we do nationwide search. If you look at last year's statistics, we made 212 placements. We generated just south of $12 million in direct hire fee revenue, right? And so when you look at what our average fee is, it's about 54,000, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so these are high level individuals,
Yeah.
right? It's lawyers, it's wealth advisors, investment bankers, private equity, venture capital, manufacturing, industrial technology. Our reach is wherever somebody has a desk, a phone, and an internet connection, right? Because that's
Yes.
how we're going to get a hold of them.
Right.
We've worked for companies like Honeywell and Danaher Corporation on roles in Rotterdam,
Mm-hmm.
right? And in London. And if somebody is in front of a computer during the day, we have an opportunity to poach them.
Got it. I mean that's another challenge right there, right? Is the fact that you're having to do this remotely. So how have you guys mastered that, the being remote and bringing on these people? Because it's obviously I love technology. I love the fact that you can do all
Yeah.
these interviews virtually, but I mean it's a little bit easier sometimes when you're face to face and you can really get a read on somebody, right? So how have you guys mastered that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, so on the candidate side, right, once somebody's at that 250K level, it doesn't require a lot of policing to make sure that they're going to iron their shirt before the interview, right? Or
Right,
tuck
right.
it in, or
Yeah,
show up on time, or do research, right? These
right.
are skilled professionals.
Yes,
It's not a 40K administrative assistant that I've got showing up for an interview in Pearland, Texas,
right.
right? So a lot of times, from a candidate relationship standpoint, it doesn't require a tremendous amount of hand holding or vetting, right?
Hmm.
But whenever it comes to managing the relationship with the client, it is difficult, right?
Yeah.
Because, you know, one of our best clients is Sabic Industries, which is an industrial plastics manufacturer in Selkirk, New York.
Hmm.
We might think that we've got a relationship with that site HR generalist that we've made 10 placements with over the last year and a half.
Yeah.
But guess what? If somebody goes to church with her, right? Their kids are friends
Yeah.
and they can visit with them once every 2 weeks on site, bringing them lunch, right?
Hmm.
That exposes us to losing that client relationship because of the personal touch. And so
Right.
now more than ever, it's required for us to deliver results to make sure that we maintain that trust, rapport, and credibility that I talk about.
Hmm. Well, I mean, obviously, you guys are doing that, because you guys have been highly successful, and it's working out, right? So, the talent landscape is constantly shifting, right? So, what trends are you seeing in executive recruiting right now that businesses need to be paying attention to?
Yeah, great question. So I think that now more than ever, employers are focusing a little bit less on, hey, let's go out and go steal somebody from our direct competitor. And so they're requiring less of the subject matter expertise in their specific industry. And the reason
Okay.
why is there's this massive push for companies to innovate,
Yep.
right? To be a little bit more creative, to bring in automation, maybe even AI, right?
Yeah.
Systems and controls in order to maximize profitability. So if let's say that I'm GE, right?
Hmm.
Am I going to go out and poach somebody from Honeywell and just bring their systems? Or do I want to go out and poach somebody from Tesla,
Yeah.
from Meta? You see what I'm saying, right?
Yes. Yep.
Where they might have completely unique and different ideas and methodologies in order for us to achieve their business goals. And so
Hmm.
there's more of a hyper focus on creativity and innovation and a little bit less on does this person know how to make the widget that we make today?
Right, right. I've always loved the fact of, the idea of hiring within, but there's nothing like, a fresh set of eyes coming in, right? And having unique ideas like you just mentioned. So I think that is definitely a big part of it, like you said.
100%.
Right. Well, thank you for touching on that. I do appreciate it, Jeremy. So I did want to shift gears a little bit. You did talk about being a dad of three boys, and so how has fatherhood influenced the way you've shown up as a leader? Because I mean, it does change you, right? You got to be, it's, you're a leader of them, but also a leader in your industry. So like, how is that kind of meshed?
Man, I'll tell you. So there's two answers, right? There's me showing up as a dad, right?
Hmm.
And wanting to be a person who my children respect and admire,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
Because I did a LinkedIn post today. It's funny, like I can't beat all my kids in a foot race anymore, right? I can't throw a football farther than my 12-year-old.
Right.
I can't cross up and drive right on my 10-year-old who's an all-star basketball player, right? And these are all qualities that they respect and admire,
Hmm.
right? And so I have to make sure that my kids still see this authority of somebody that has their shit together, right? And so I
Right.
talk about business, I talk about strategy, innovation, investments, right? Mergers, acquisitions. I talk about what their mom does, what I do, what Miss Yulia, their future stepmom, does, right?
Yes.
And that builds rapport with my kids. Now, how has it made me a better leader in business? I'll tell you, it's for sure made me a way more empathetic boss.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever there's a staff member who their kid has a runny nose
Yeah.
or a cough, right? Or maybe they fall off of the jungle gym and break their elbow, right?
Yep.
Maybe before kids, it was like, well, I don't give a shit. You have a job to do,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
And now it forces you to be a little bit more empathetic because God forbid it was my kid that
Yeah.
I had to leave early and go pick up because, he's got, hand, foot, mouth. Do you remember those days, Dylan?
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Yeah. For sure. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's, or pink eye or some
Yes.
bullshit that we've all
Exactly.
had to deal with as
Yep.
parents,
Yeah, man, that is such a good point because, you can tell when people don't have children and they're in that leadership role because they're just like, you know what, you need to put your job first. You know, you need to leave your problems at the door. And it's like, you're going to be thinking about it on like all day. There's no way you
Yeah.
just leave that at the door, right?
Well, it's funny. A lot of times, like, we recruit for lawyers, right? And there's these young, high flying associate attorneys that might be a fourth or fifth year female associate.
Yeah.
And she might say, well, how many female partners are at the firm, right? And because she looks to these individuals as role models, but it's important to recognize that are those 28% female partners, do they have kids,
Yeah.
right? Did they sacrifice their family life to focus on their career? Because maybe that female partner that you look up to that made partner in 11 years, right? That's 35 years old and makes $1.5 million a year.
Yeah.
She might not be as empathetic to the young mom,
Mhm.
And so it's important to align with the right culture that's going to help you achieve your career and also personal goals as well.
Right, right. It is wild to see like the different questions that are asked and the topics that are brought up in those interviews versus, entry level employees because it's more so just like what's the culture like. But when you get to that high level executives, those are things that matter, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny when you think about executive search, right? Like,
Hmm.
the difference that $40,000 makes between somebody that's at 70K and
Yeah,
going to 110, that's transformative
it
for your
is.
life,
Right,
right?
right.
But if I'm at 375, I may very well take a pay cut to 335
Hmm.
for a shorter commute, maybe some
Yes,
work from home flexibility. You know
yes.
what I'm saying? Maybe I'm traveling 80% and this other opportunity is only traveling 50%.
Hmm.
So you look at $40,000, that's real dollars, but guess what? Your needs are kind of met after a
Yes.
certain number.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And at that point, it's more quality of life. You're worried about that rather than, that extra 40K when you're at that level. Absolutely.
Or maybe even your priorities on what you value
Hmm.
shift,
Yes.
I know myself at 41 years old, what I envision as success is very different than maybe the lens that I look through at 31.
100%. Right. Yep. No, I couldn't agree more. You're definitely right. I wanted to shift gears again and talk about your podcast. What inspired you to start your podcast, The Path to Success, and how has it contributed to your personal brand and business growth?
Yeah, great question. So I started that podcast probably a little over a year ago,
Okay.
and I had moved from being kind of like this single guy that was known for hanging out at patio bars and throwing parties, and I really wanted to kind of clean up my act, right?
Yeah.
And so I moved to a big boy neighborhood, right, River Oaks here in Houston. It's a really nice, affluent part of town. And I said, hey, I need to elevate my friend group, right? And kind of create a little bit of distance from the younger people that just wanted a day drink all day on a
Right.
Saturday, right? And so that's whenever I had this idea that I'm going to interview successful people with the intent that I was going to make more friends, right?
Right.
So let's just say that, KK, right? Dr. Khaled Khalaf, 40-year-old cardiologist here in Houston, well-known, super cool guy, is a stud, right?
Yes.
If I just slid into his DMs on Instagram and said, hey, KK, do you want to be my friend? He would have probably blocked me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Don't be weird.
But if I say, hey, I've got this podcast,
Yeah.
right? I ancillarily know of you. Here's a recent episode, right? If that gets him into my office, in my podcast studio, now he sees 13,000 square feet of Class A office space.
Hmm.
He sees 40 young professionals on the phone. Man, this guy's got a real business.
Yeah.
That's incredible, right?
Right.
So that builds trust and rapport with that individual, not to mention the hour that he spends across the table from me talking about fear, failure,
Yeah.
regret, guilt, shame, insecurity. That builds a tremendous amount of trust and respect for one another during that very, very vulnerable, intimate moment.
Right. Right. No, I couldn't
So
agree
it's
more.
totally self-serving. I just wanted to make more friends,
Yeah.
Dylan.
Yeah. I mean, I'm assuming you still have brought some business to Encore through interviewing some of these amazing minds, right?
Yeah, I mean, not really
No?
client business. The
No?
way that it's created demand, I'll say, is, let's say the 14 guests that I've had in the podcast studio over the last year and a half,
Yeah.
those people are all micro influencers of the Jeremy Jenson and Encore Search brand in the community, right? So
Mm-hmm.
when their little cousin or their neighbor or their friend says, hey, do you know of a good recruiter? I know exactly who those people are going to recommend, right? And
Right.
so it's created demand of people that wanted to come work for us, right? And create revenue here. It's funny, the guy that records and edits all of our podcasts came to work for me because he watched one of the episodes where I interviewed one of his former coworkers, and he said, hey, I want to be a part of that team,
Yeah. Right.
So
Right.
it's this butterfly effect that it kind of creates. I'm looking at the social media person
Yeah.
that just accepted a full-time offer at Encore Search today after her internship.
Uh-huh.
One of her friends recommended our firm because her CEO mentioned to her, this is a great place for an early career person to go and develop their skills. And so while it's never caused Google to raise their hand and say, hey, Jeremy, we want you to come in and recruit application DevOps engineers, right?
Right.
But there's other ways that it could make us money for sure.
Right, right. Hey, you never know. It could in time, right? I mean, I honestly, when I first started my podcast, I never knew it was going to take me to the heights that it has. The people that I've met, the partnerships that it's developed, and it was all through this podcast. I thought I did this just because I was excited to speak with, business-minded people, high-level individuals like yourself. And, like you said, build friends, make friends. But honestly,
think about it, Dylan. I mean,
yeah.
you're moving to Reno with the family, right? Let's say you got a conference in Houston. I know you're going to remember me.
Right.
You shoot me a DM or a text and you say, hey, dude, let's go grab dinner. Imagine the 3 other dudes that I'm going to invite that night that you're going to meet, right? Because of the 1 hour that we spent across the mic with one another.
Right, exactly. And I think that's very important. I'm part of a group that, a podcasting network that talks exactly about that. They say that everyone should have podcasts because these conversations you have, they should be recorded. You never know when it's going to stand out to somebody, right?
Everybody should not have, Todd Webb should not have a podcast. He's way too nerdy. He's not confident behind the mic and the camera. We need to develop that confidence and those skills. That's my video guy that's recording right now. I'm picking
just called
on him.
out. That's hilarious.
Though his wife has a TikTok, and I like that he's really stepping outside of his comfort zone, and he's getting in front of the camera a little bit. And I see, he might not admit that he likes the clicks, likes, and shares.
Right.
No, he does.
It feels good. Yeah. No, for sure. The great thing about podcasting is you can even make it audio only, so you can even hide his face.
Absolutely.
Yeah. No, that's awesome, man. Well, Jeremy, this has been great, man. So I did want to ask you, how can listeners connect with you, learn more about Encore Search Partners, and as well as listen to your podcast?
Yeah. So if you're interested in following the business commentary, right? LinkedIn is the best place to follow me. You can learn about the podcast, my personal life, and my company. It's my name, Jeremy Jenson, Jenson. And I've got a little goat emoji at the end of my last name, right? Yep. If you want to follow the personal life, right? And me and my fiance, we travel, we have fun, we play pickleball, we do shit that's cool, right? Yeah. Last night we went to the theater and saw Mamma Mia. But you could follow me on Instagram. It's just my name, Jeremy Jenson. And so those are the 2 best ways to follow me. And if you shoot me a direct message on any platform, I promise you'll get a reply.
Perfect. Yeah, I'll make that a little easier accessible on the show notes as well. And, you have quite a few followers on LinkedIn, so obviously people are following.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Excellent, man.
Awesome, man. Well, I do have one more question before we go, just for the entrepreneurs out there. I always like to end with one last piece of advice. So for those who are listening, who are building their own business or looking to level up their leadership, what's one piece of advice that you'd give that you wish you had heard to start out your journey?
Whenever you have a hot market, right, you could think that you're doing everything right and that you're winning because of all the shit that you're doing great. But I think that it's important to recognize that a hot market can often compensate, right, for poor processes and systems. And then whenever the hot market kind of dissipates, then your business will start to fail because you got used to winning with all of your inefficiencies. And so I guess my piece of advice for entrepreneurs is really shore up your processes and systems even in the face of a down market, because when the market gets hot, you can exploit the positivity and the good of that market 5 times better than if you did it just trying to grab everything with bad processes and systems. So it's processes, systems, people, scalability. Those are the keys to success.
Oh, that's amazing advice, Jeremy. Would you also say ability to pivot as well at the end of the day, if it does, the hot market kind of takes a crash?
Man, I pivoted in 2013 and it's the best decision that I've ever made. My first business was an email marketing and lead generation business. I was making $250,000 a year at 26 years old. I could have looked in the mirror and said, I'm successful.
Yes.
But I pivoted. And I'll tell you, Dylan, I'm not going to share the bank account, but it paid off, bro.
Right.
It paid off.
Hell yeah, Jeremy.
Pivoting.
Yes.
Yeah, I have a W in the pivoting
Right.
community.
Yes, sir. That's amazing, man. Well, thank you so much for joining today. I enjoyed the hell out of this, man. So looking forward to speaking with you again soon.
Sounds good. Thanks a lot for having me.